ScaleIO 131 deployment in VMware. Let's go through a complete deployment of ScaleIO 131 on VMware, in our case an ESX 5.5 environment, to see what's changed relative to the prior 130 version. As before, the first step is to register the plugin, the vSphere Web Client plugin for ScaleIO with your vCenter, and that's accomplished using a VMware PowerShell script. You run this script, which is a .ps1 script inside of VMware PowerShell. That's the plugin setup script. And if you notice, the script has changed a little bit. There's now a simplified environment with just one script called plugin setup. It can do everything. It can register the plugin, it can unregister the plugin, and you can also use it to create the ScaleIO virtual machine template. All these steps used to be done using a separate script for each in the prior version. So I'm going to go ahead and register at this point. And again, with registration, we have an enhancement. If you go for the standard enhancement, which is what I would do, there's no dependency on an external installation manager gateway or on an external web server. We don't need that anymore, because when you select standard, it spins up its own internal server to do the servicing of the loading. So it's completed. If you do wish to continue using the legacy way of loading the plugin using either installation manager or an external web server, make sure to select the advanced option. So at this point, if we log into our vSphere web client, and we will do that, we will find that the ScaleIO plugin shows up. And there it is. So now we can go ahead and create the SVM template, which is the next step. This is the OVA template for the ScaleIO virtual machine. It comes with the distribution for VMware. You need a data store as before to upload it to. Now that the template has been loaded, we can exit the script. So the rest of the deployment can be completed entirely using the vSphere web client. Now inside the main screen of the ScaleIO plugin, you see a few additional options. You can now install the SDC natively on ESX, provided you have version 5.5, not on the older versions like 5.1. If you choose to go this route, and it's recommended for performance, you would need to perform this step on all the ESX servers in the environment that require the SDC before you deploy ScaleIO environment. Under advanced settings, there's a small addition. This is where you select whether you want to go RDM pass-through or VMDK for how you present disks to the or devices to the SDS component, which is running inside the SVM. The recommended way is to go RDM, and as long as your devices are behind a parallel SCSI controller, that used to be supported. Now a few non-parallel SCSI controllers that are capable of RDM are supported as well. But if you do have non-parallel SCSI controllers that can do RDM, this is something you would check with ScaleIO support before you enable this option. You can also look at the vCenter server log directly from the screen from your vSphere client, which is convenient. And the log is in fact in the debug mode, but note that only the last 1,000 or so entries can be shown through this client. If you decide to go SDC on SVM, which is the old way, or you upgraded from a prior version of ScaleIO and therefore your SDCs are now inside an SVM, you can, in the 5.5 environment, upgrade your SDCs from the vSphere web client directly to the ESX version of the client. And when doing that, you can choose to look at the upgrade logs from right here, the progress of the upgrades. So I'm going to go ahead and do a full install starting with the native SDC on ESX because I have 5.5 in my environment. I have 3 ESX servers, and I'm going to go ahead and install the SDC on all of them. I have the same root password on all hosts in the ESX cluster. So show password will show me what it is. Now it's important after performing this step to reboot all your ESX servers which have the SDC installed on them. So after a full reboot, if you get on your ESX servers and check the web list, you should be able to see the new web installed. So I'm looking for the word SDC in the name of the web. And you can see that the 5.5 version of the ScaleIO SDC has been installed natively on this ESX. Your acceptance level for the software is going to be different at GA time. The acceptance level will be partner supported. Now for the main deployment. We're installing a full cluster. We select all the ESX servers that are going to be participating in this ScaleIO cluster. In our case, we have 3. We select which host will have the primary MDM and the secondary MDM and the tiebreaker. We create one protection domain in this environment. We only have one kind of devices, so we go with default for storage pool. Now this screen is different. It used to have SDSs and SDCs defined in the same screen. Now they are separated. We're doing SDSs first. I'm going to go for a fully converged environment, so SDSs on all of them. And now we need to select the devices for each SDS. And we do the same for all the other ESX servers that will be SDSs. There's a new option that's been added to the screen that talks about whether you want to specify additional storage capacity or device capacity on each SDS. So if you want to go beyond what you specify on the screen on any given SDS at a later date, you can pre-configure the number of terabytes you anticipate an increase of storage in advance. And what this influences is how much RAM will be configured for the SVM that will be hosting this SDS. So in version 131, the SVM RAM is dependent on things like whether the SDC and the SDS will both be installed, and also for a given SDS, how much storage capacity is on it, which could be up to 64 terabytes of devices per SDS. And the next screen is where we do the SDCs. And I'm going to go ESX flavor on all of them. Confirm that the password is okay. There's an explanation for this option that tells you whether to enable or disable SCSI LUN number comparison. Read through it and decide what is right for your environment. Usually it's set to disabled. Now this is new. The version 131 will install the ScaleIO gateway in a separate virtual machine in the environment. And this is useful for performing upgrades of the ScaleIO software. Here we select the template to be used. You can select up to 8 templates for additional performance during deployment. This determines how many virtual machines can be created in parallel from the template. The root password for the SVMs. This screen hasn't changed. This is the network setup for the base ESX servers. And I'm going to make one data network for the data traffic. This is the data IP. The net mask. Here we do the IPs for the SVMs. Now here's something new. In addition to all the hosts that will have SVMs, this will be any host requiring MDM, SDS, or the SVM flavor SDCs. You will see an additional virtual machine here on this list. That's a ScaleIO gateway. And you will need to configure all the IP details and the storage details for it. Management IP. Netmask. Gateway. This is the IP on the data port, since we had one data network set up for this environment. Data subnet mask. And here's something new. This is the data store that's going to be hosting the particular virtual machine. You can either go automatic or manually select. In our case, I'm going to manually select. And you do the same for all the other virtual machines. So at this point, we're done and we can proceed with the next screen. The summary screen. vCenter authentication. And it begins the process of deploying, shows you how many tasks it's going to be doing. Pretty much similar to the prior version 1.3.0. One thing that's new in this screen is you're going to see right next to pause and view log, if there are any failures, you might see extra buttons for rollbacks. This is in case of failures. And one of the new options with rollback is you can now selectively roll back only the failed tasks, which could be useful in large clusters where you experience isolated deployment failures on a few servers. You might roll those back and then manually install and add in just those few servers. That pretty much completes the deployment of ScaleIO 1.3.1. That was